tokens need to have properties that help them capture value, right? And so Scale, one, there's a staking component. You can buy Scale tokens, stake in the network, get rewards, participate in fees from chains. You don't have the resources, no matter how big you think you are, to be totally general purpose. So you need to go after that first bowling pin. It knocks over the second two, it knocks over the last ones. And then you get so big, you can knock them all over. We're in the top 5 of all blockchains almost every single day in terms of unique active wallets and transaction volume.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Empire. Fun episode. We're sitting down with a longtime friend, Jack O'Halloran. Longtime friend, but I don't know how to pronounce your last name at this point. So I'll give you the background in a little bit, but Jack, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
It's one of those real simple Irish names, easy to pronounce. So
I've got like a Jewish Polish last name. You've got the Jewish Polish people don't know how to pronounce the Irish names. It's. But
you're lucky. You got the Yano. I'm missing that. It could be like Oho maybe, but it's not as cool.
Maybe what did your friends call you as a kid? Jack.
Jacko.
Jacko. There you go. All right, guys. So for the listeners, for context, known Jack for a while. Jack is CEO of Scale Labs. Scale Labs has developed the Scale network and Scale blockchain. For anyone who's around and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but for anyone who's around in the 2017, 2018, 2019 bear market, Scale was one of the big, and hopefully I'm not offending anyone here, Jack, one of the big companies and upstarts, like your co-founder, Stan, brilliant technical guy, was working at Alamo Labs and doing cryptography and quantum resistant stuff in the 90s, just crazy gigabrain developer. And then I feel like in the last couple of years, you guys have actually not really taken off in the what I'd call the crypto Twitter narrative. So I wanted the context of this episode. I just wanted to have Jack on to catch up with a friend, but also a co-founder of a network where I feel like they've been building for several years, but haven't really taken off in the narrative. So Jack, hopefully that is not an offensive way to tee you up here.
No, I love that because, someone said to me the other day is Scale has the best product market fit. A developer told me this. He's like, you have the best product market fit in the entire industry. You're leading, everybody picks, all these developers pick Scale, love Scale, but we have the worst narrative market fit. And so I think it'll be kind of fun to talk about narrative market fit today. And one of our strengths and weaknesses is we've just been so committed to making the best product and helping developers. And that's a strength. It's also weakness if you're not following the narrative market fit. And, but sometimes the tortoise wins the race. So I'm as optimistic as ever, about Scale, continuing to win the developer market and having a stronger presence.
How is Scale evolved? So I'd love to talk about that. Maybe just give us a little bit of context, because I think people will probably, they know the Solanas of the world and the Arbitrums and the Optimisms. And for folks who don't know Scale as much, can you just give me the backstory and also maybe the pre-Scale backstory as well?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you one thing that the aha, whenever people are like, well, what's going on with Scale? I haven't seen you in a year or two. I'm like, oh, well, we're in the top 5 of all blockchains almost every single day in terms of unique active wallets and transaction volume. We had 88 million on-chain transactions last month. We've had over 600 million on-chain transactions in the history of the network. We're averaging around 4 million unique active wallets a month. So we're nailing it. So people hear that and whoa, well, how come I'm not hearing about you every day? And it's well, if you're a game developer, a blockchain game developer, you hear about us every day. If you are a developer in AI doing Web3 application, you know all about Scale. Our developer awareness is really, really strong. So, and so are on-chain metrics, because we have 250 some projects that have signed to build the network, and only a certain fraction of those are already live in producing those metrics. So I think we have those, and so back to your question, that's the this matters. It's not just a story. This is a top 5 category leader in 2 major categories of blockchain. Well, we started back in 2018. I come from enterprise software, worked in machine learning and AI as a founder since 2008. Worked in mobile cryptography before that, B2B enterprise software entrepreneur and built, really successful companies. My co-founder, Stan Kladko, also like really successful scientist, turned researcher, at Stanford and turned entrepreneur as well. And, we were trying to solve a problem for ourselves. We were trying to solve the problem of scalability of Ethereum. So we didn't build Scale to follow trends or narratives. We actually built it for us as developers, that each of us had applications we wanted to build. And Stan deserves a credit for coming up with that architecture and vision, but that's really our genesis and how we got here and what we're doing. And we've never really fit in a category because I think we have a bit of a hybrid solution. But that hybrid solution, that's what happens if you put 10 people in a room, and they can't hear or see what the other people are doing. You're going to probably have 10, different answers. If you have 9 of them in a room and they're all like, collaborating with each other, and these other ones are not in the room and they're just building what they think is the best thing, you might have 9 similar things and 1 dissimilar thing. And that's really part of the story of Scale.
Okay, so you were actually the first person to ever kind of pitch me the idea of this, like, I'm going to reference other blockchains because people know them pretty well. Like what Optimism is doing with like the OP stack, or Arbitrum is doing with like L3s and Stylus and stuff like that. Like, you were actually the first person to pitch me that idea, which was like Ethereum network here, Scale network here. You've got like the validator network, and then you've got the Scale chains up here built on the Scale network, which really, I mean, I'll be honest, at the time I didn't fully understand it, but it looked cool on the whiteboard. And now I'm seeing everyone doing it. And I'm like, oh my God, that was what Jack was pitching me many, many years ago. So what do you think you guys have gotten right over the years? And what do you think you've gotten wrong over the years?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you think about what Scale is, and I'll try to keep this as simple as possible, it's many, many blockchains that actually all share one unified validator set. So there's one validator set, but at any given time, there's a different committee or set of those validators that are working on each of those chains. And guess what? It's also anchored into the Ethereum mainnet. So there's added security because there's a lot of network functions. It's almost like an eigenlayer where these Scale nodes are getting security based off a staking mechanic in the ETH mainnet. Okay. And so you have the secondary network that gets security from Ethereum, because that's where these staking operations live, and also assignments around, hey, which nodes work together. But at the end of the day, we have lots of these chains and that can horizontally scale, and they're all based off one pooled security, one set of validators. And so people be like, oh, side chains aren't secure. Well, they're right, because you just have this like kind of small set of validators. Scale chains, one of the biggest things we got wrong, people are like, oh, it's a side chain. Well, they didn't understand it's actually this entire modular network, leveraging pooled security principles, leveraging containerization techniques like you see in like Eigenlayer and other networks that have come after the fact. The networks like Celestia, like leveraging horizontal scaling and modularity, which we've been doing this since 2020. And so what we got right is I think we were early in seeing where the future was going. We also used to have, you could have a small chain, a medium chain, a large chain. And we come from enterprise software, right? Where I built a company that was a world leader in the AI machine learning category and across the entire life science biotech category. And enterprise software is all about configuration and, making things like fit for, that's what you need. It's so sophisticated. So what we got right was the structure. What we got wrong was like the world wasn't ready for sophistication. Guess what was successful? Just like one single proof of stake side chain and one monolithic layer 1. And we're like, we could have launched that easily back in 2020 and then continually like added these features or introduced them. And, we kind of but we saw this world. We're like, hey, well, that's not going to scale. And we lose security properties if we don't do A, B, C things. So in a way, in the short term, we made mistakes because we were so true to our vision for the best product. In the long term, I think that's going to serve the network and all the, participants in the network very well. But it was an interesting lesson that being better is not as good if you're more complicated.
Yeah. Do you wish
and you don't fit in a neat category?
Do you wish you just got to market faster and just said, look, like you tried to build the Lamborghini instead of just trying to maybe get the Toyota out to market and then like expanding on that. That's probably a horrible analogy, but like do you wish you just got to market faster and then built and built and built and built, as opposed to maybe like waiting and trying to build this Lamborghini like in the
Yeah, well,
workshop?
and I think what we built fast.
Yeah.
I think it would have been whatever we would have built even faster if it were just, like just the engine and the wheels and the steering wheel, and some brakes. Instead, we built, so we could have got to market faster. The other part was the communications. There wasn't a category for us, right?
Mm.
And so it was an interesting thing. And I know a lot of people listening are really on top of narratives and like this narrative market fit. But, as a builder and somebody who's like been an entrepreneur in the tech space for a long time, like I look at all these things, I'm like, wow, like these are like very simple things that people are just grokking, and we're building this, next step and what, everyone's going to need. And, for us, success is going to be really dependent on, can we take advantage of the first mover advantage, right? Are we gonna fumble the ball? Are we gonna like take it in the end zone? Because when you have horizontal scalability, when you have modularity, when you have cost effectiveness and high security, it's amazing for developers, but you have to build market share. And at some point, you've got to inject yourself back into that narrative and be part of that. And that's one of the reasons why we just brought on a new CMO who is a former CMO of Arbitrum. We're boosting our game in different areas as a project and as a core team. But yeah, these things are very critical. But
Yeah.
it would have been, in retrospect, we should have been communicating a Toyota because everyone understood Toyotas. And we could have even been keeping the Lamborghini a little bit like behind the product marketing lens. If I had a magic wand, I could go back and do it all over again. But I think we're great where we are, to be honest. You learn from your mistakes and you're better and stronger for them. So
Yeah. Tell me more about it's funny, even with Blockworks, like we've seen us be in the narrative and out of the narrative over the we launched them 7 years ago. It's like sometimes we were this like institutional media brand as the institutions were coming in, and then like the institutions left in a bear market, and it's like, oh well, maybe people don't care about the institutions anymore. So it's like these narratives change all the time, but I think you have to try to build for the end game. Maybe you could tell me more about this narrative market fit that you see.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, we met, little history for people. We met in 2018 at the Multi-Coin Summit in New York. And you guys, like, I got to say, just hats off to you for executing. But I think it's a great example of like staying true to your vision, right? All of a sudden there was an institutional market and people that were, smart people that wanted to learn. And that market wasn't there for a while. It was like, well, how do I just, help these like novices and, understand basics of crypto? And you guys were like, no, there's a sophisticated market. There's smart people that want deep, rich information. And, you stuck to your guns, and that's what we're doing. And
so using
good job.
So I appreciate the kind words, Jack. Using that maybe as a kicking off point, I'll change my question. What is so if Blockworks was this institutional crowd, that is X for Skale. Like that is Web 2 developers, that is gamers. Like what is the thing that you guys have been building for that maybe hasn't come into the market but is just starting to come into the market? If that question makes sense.
Yeah, and we call them HPDs at Skale, high performance dApps. Okay, it's kind of a dorky name, but so it happens when you work in software for too long, you start making acronyms. And so think about it, like what applications care about like having zero gas fees? What applications care about like incredibly fast finality, instant finality with like incredibly fast time to finality with high throughput, high transaction volume? It's games, it's AI applications, it's Web3 social applications, it's deep in applications. All right. And this category was not, it's still not well represented, and like the metrics around it are not appreciated. I think you look at, hey, I think part of that is there's a reflexive element that if you buy crypto tokens, well, you probably are involved in DeFi. And what's the main category you use? You use DeFi. And if you go look at the DeFi Llama top 100, almost matches the top 100 market cap, not to talk too much about prices, but, so I think there's an element of, for us, we're building for developers. We're not, we're building to solve a problem. And I think there's an element where this market, and you look at Amazon back in the day, people are like, oh, well, you're building this. Well, who wants that? Well, people really severely underestimated the TAM of that market and the product market fit for what they're bringing. And, I think people like Skale and other similar projects that are chasing this, lots of users, lots of transactions, not big transaction size, low size, and sometimes zero, more smart contract execution for, different values that you're for on-chain mechanics that impact money and value transfer. Like this thing is still, a little bit, under wraps.
Tell me more about this narrative market fit that you think maybe you guys haven't fully nailed, and maybe why. Like, I think other people like Solana or Arbitrum or an Eigenlayer or Celestia, like they're in the narrative, right? They're on crypto Twitter. They're very much in the narrative. Like, what do you think? Why do you think that happens like that?
Yeah, I think there's two reasons. Number one, like things are made simple for people to understand. So back in the day, it was like you either had to be a layer one or you had to be an ETH killer layer one or a layer two. And we were hot back then, but all of a sudden it was like, no, you're not a layer two unless you do a roll up. And if you have a different integration model where Scale still brings a lot of value back to Ethereum, but it's not a roll up. And because it just brings way too much cost to the end user and to the developer. And so for us, we made decisions not to optimize the value capture of ETH in the short term, but to optimize value capture for developers and players and users of applications. And so the layer two community was like, you're not a layer two if you're doing finality and consensus in your chains, whether it be your app chains or your side chains or your, shards. And so we kind of were not involved in either of these categories. So you have market leading like reports of who's leading each category, and we just weren't even in them. So that's one, is that people need like simple, clear boxes to put things in. The other one is, if you think about it, there's always continuing investment from venture firms, okay? And what are they good at? Like driving awareness. Oh, news cycle. So-and-so just raised at this valuation. Oh, around this thing. And then token goes live at billions of dollars of valuation, and people are hunting airdrops. And so what's happening is venture firms are funding the next categories, and they're also, creating a system of hype around those categories. And so I think this is something that's going to be changing in the market, where there's going to be more focus and narrative attention back to fundamentals as opposed to, okay, what's hot and new and shiny. And because in typical software, you're no matter how good and how on narrative you are in enterprise software and other software infrastructure categories, you're going to have to post metrics. You have to post revenue. You're going to have to show product market fit. You're going to have to do all these things. And to get that, you need to be 10 times better than the prior solution for companies to rip out what you have. And in crypto, people are like, well, this is iteratively better. This is 1% better, 2% better because this firm did this. And these firms, hey, I'm friends with a lot of these firms. We have 14 of them that participated in Scale, and I'm an LP in a lot of these funds. They've got to deploy capital, and hey, we're all there's great projects that are being funded, but that's also capturing narrative. And so one answer is also continually raising money and getting the flywheel going by getting those voices. But those are, I think, two reasons. Long answer to your question, but
can you fix it?
Well, I think markets naturally fix themselves. Okay. When I'm talking about the problem, can Scale fix its position? I think we're in a phenomenal position now. So I think markets fix themselves. And I talked about this, push back to fundamentals. Well, what happens is when we have the weekend we just had, right? This is not a fun weekend. You got up Saturday and you're like, oh, that was bad. You got up Sunday and you're like, what happened? You wake up Monday and you're like, it got worse. It was a horrible weekend in the markets. Things like this actually end up driving more value into fundamental proof, right? And we look at these market cycles. When you look at the cycles we've had, we're like, well, no, the cycle will repeat itself on these schedules. Well, the reality is each time on those schedules, there's been really clear data points that smart people running funds are like, oh, look at the metrics of DeFi, for example, in 2020. Look at the utility. Look at these things happening. We have confidence in these things, right? And these things where people could have provable confidence brings in big institutional money. And hey, meme coins are great, and I think are going to do a lot of things for community building. They're almost like the more accessible version of NFTs. So not to knock them, but a lot of that is not, there's no fundamentals and other than like community and, and hopefully they evolve and they start doing more things that drive fundamentals. And I think they will. But that's a long way of saying that like markets have a natural way of driving. I started my career in the mid aughts and definitely saw that happen following like the 2000 bust and the 2008 bust. And, you just see this like, attention back to value capture.
The only pushback I'd have there is that in crypto, for one reason or another, and for better or for worse, price tends to drive narrative, and narrative at this because the industry is so nascent. It's like price drives narrative, narrative drives fundamentals. So what I mean by that is like token starts going up, narrative becomes this thing is hot, this category is hot, whether it's modular, whether it's restaking, whether it's the return to monolithic chains, and then developers start building on that thing, build better applications, and then more users come in, and then the fundamentals happen. Again, for better or for worse, for one reason or another, maybe it doesn't always look like that, but if you think about that in context of like a Scale, maybe because then you weren't plugged into a narrative, the price of the token didn't go up, so then maybe the excitement didn't happen, which didn't cause the develop. Right, that flywheel kind of broke down. So I don't know. Just curious.
And I'll just say one. So two things. So one, I think I'm looking at this right now. I'm not talking about Scale. I'll address Scale in a second. Yeah. And also, when it comes to Scale, I like even for lots of reasons, I can't talk about any price things, but I'll talk more about our narrative. And I just don't address price. But so when we look at when I look at this, I think crypto in 10 years is going to be far more boring. Okay. And the analysts and the type of things you see in traditional, equities and securities market, right? There's a lot of like less sexy things that are driving, market appreciation, right? People are like, and I think in 10 years, crypto is going to be looking a lot more like that because, these blood in the markets and maturation in general is going to be driving more and more value. Now, is it going to happen overnight? No. And I think but I do think like the pendulum swinging back, or not swinging back, it's moving now into a point of fundamentals, but it not entirely. Like we're not going to get a 10-year shift in 60 days. So for projects that like, hey, are we legally and for all these reasons, like, and we're a decentralized project. We just focus on fundamentals, but big piece of that is how many people do we have in our community? How big is our following? How many people are staking and participating in the network governance, right? So we need, we're not focused on price, we focused on these other things around awareness. And so those things, you need narrative market fit. And so for us, I think you say, can we fix it? I think, it's almost like a movie where like we were hot and then all of a sudden we weren't involved, but all of a sudden like we stuck to our guns and the narrative's naturally moving back to us. And that's, but you can't just wait for that to happen. You have to do marketing. You have to do awareness programs. And that's why we hired Andrew Saunders, the former CMO of Arbitrum, to go and make that happen. Because there's a lot of things we weren't doing. And I look back and I'm like, in a lot of ways, our project was, I think a little naive in that we just thought not build and they would come, but like build it, grow it, get real fundamentals, and everything takes care of itself. And that's just not the way things are. So you do have to get out and inject yourself into narratives and do the things, that you can do in a compliant fashion to drive your awareness. And I think we're doing a lot of that. And naturally, you look at Scale. Scale is a modular pooled security blockchain with horizontal linear scalability. Like we meet a lot of these like really sexy themes. We also have this gas-free nature that I think is going to be, we're going to have a ton of competitors trying to do this almost like decentralized SaaS model for chain payments and gas subsidies.
Yeah, so that's actually the next thing I was going to go into is maybe we could talk about this gas-free idea, because I feel like gas-free has been thrown around for a while. It's like you get the users to pay. So right now the users pay for gas, right? Everyone knows how the current model works. I think your guys' idea, as I understand it, is you get the developers to almost subscribe to Scale in what feels like a B2B SaaS model in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that covers the gas fees of the users. So I think, I don't know how much, I'm curious if you guys have metrics on like how much gas you've covered over time for users. I don't know if that exists, but yeah, maybe you could just tell us about this model and like, why is this the best model to make users like not feel the pain of gas?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one metric that's so big, it's almost unbelievable is if you look at the gas consumption on the Scale network, we have saved, if all that was spent on the Ethereum network, it's over $7 billion in gas fees saved. Okay. It's a high number.
Mm.
Um, now, but it's a little apples and oranges because guess what? Gas just costs less in Scale because there's there's not finite capacity. The other thing that makes Scale that I think makes a true gas-free network, every chain has the ability to essentially utilize what are called relayers, where you can subsidize gas. So at the wallet level, I can, you're playing a game like, oh, I'm not paying any gas fees. Guess what? Someone's paying it. But what's happening is the unit economics suck because the validators still are getting paid for each transaction. In Scale, the unit economics are really, really good because what happens is developers rent a part of a chain. Okay. And like, oh, I got to buy Scale tokens. I'm going to deposit it into this contract, stake it in this contract. And then over time, I buy it 12 months. Well, 1/12 every month that I put in is going to go to validators. And so you're actually renting a piece up front. Now, it's like renting a car, and instead of like paying by the mile, you're paying by the month. Well, you might not even drive the car, or you might drive at full speed the entire time. You pay the same amount. And so the unit economics end up being really good because validators don't need to compete with each other to get paid on each transaction. They're actually getting paid by running their server in the network. And they work together in unified validation where they're all actually monitoring each other. And everyone that meets the score and is a good actor equally splits the pot. And the thing is, so this is, one of our challenges at Scale. We do a lot of things. And imagine back in 2020 where it was like, oh, you're like a layer 1 or a layer 2. And we're like, oh, we're doing all these sophisticated things. We're not really well understood. But that, I think, is the biggest strength of the network. And that's why, if you go in, you're like, oh, we're X amount faster and we do this X amount better. And then you talk to a developer and they're like, well, what happens after my gas grant subsidy runs out? They're like, oh, well, then it costs this amount. And on Scale, we're like, well, what happens when your gas subsidy is going to run out from a grant from this other chain that's offering you a grant? And they're like, oh, well, it's going to cost this amount. We're like, well, on Scale, it's only going to cost this. You know what it'll cost. So you can the unit economics are so much more superior for high performance applications.
How is that economically viable for you guys then?
Tokens need to have properties that help them capture value, right? And so Scale, one, there's a staking component. You can buy Scale tokens, stake in the network, get rewards, participate in fees from chains. Now, instead of having a gas fee, what happens is a developer says, hey, it costs this amount. I'm going to go rent this chain space. Now, they may be paying, it might be 1/100th, it might be 1/10th of Solana or 1/1000th of Ethereum. But the way the network works in the economics, it's still economically viable. And the more and more applications that come, and the more the network is congested in the sense of how many chains there are, the higher price the chains are. So there's actually a linear scaling curve for the economics, just like riding an Uber or Lyft. Like surge, everybody wants a ride. Guess what? The price goes up. You know what? More drivers come, and the surge gets pushed back down because they're like, oh, it's surging. I better get out there and stop my coffee break. Well, in Scale, there's a certain amount of chains in the network, and if we're over that, the price per chain is set at a 50% load. If the network's at 80% load, it's going to cost a lot more than a chain space rented at 50% load. It also incentivizes more validators to set up more nodes. It drives the price back down to the median. So that median price was set for years of. We hired economic PhDs. We had Wall Street people working on it. We had Delphi Digital did a big back before they were doing the other stuff. They were an analyst firm, and they had a lot of really smart modeling people. And that's how the token captures value is an intelligent and accurately set median price point to ensure that the price is good for developers and there's big value capture still for validators and stakers.
Curious to hear how you think about like the ecosystem developing. So I feel like different networks, chains, L1s, L2s, whatever you want to call it, have prioritized different things, and that's led to almost different cultures of the chain. So like some chains and have focused on gaming, some have focused more on enterprises, some have focused really strong on DePIN or DeFi. How do you think about BD and like ecosystem growth?
Yeah, and I think you like Crossing the Chasm is one of the like it's an old book, but it's like one of the
Yeah.
best books of all time around like how to build a market, how to build a product, how to you know how to go to market, and there's something called the bowling pin approach, right? Like you don't have the resources, no matter how big you think you are, to be totally general purpose. So you need to go after that first bowling pin. It knocks over the second two, it knocks over the last ones, and then you get so big you can knock them all over. Okay. And and so for Scale, I think, and for other projects, you have to look at what are your strengths. Okay. What is your chain better at than other chains? And then you have to say, okay, well, how does that match up to industry segments and types of developers, types of applications? For us, we're like, wow, lots of users, lots of transactions, and that first pin is gaming. Scale's consistently in the top one, two, or three in the gaming core metrics. There's over 120 games that are signed up on Scale. I think only less than half of those are live today. Every quarter, huge amount come and join the ecosystem. And so that was our big bowling pin. And I think as others are like, wow, like we have high fees, but we've got a lot of degen community and but we have some good security guarantees. Let's go after DeFi. But that same DeFi project trying to spurt gaming, it's impossible, right? It's like literally impossible. You look at rollups, and rollups are going through a similar thing. They're like really strong in DeFi, but even if you have a 1 penny or a half a penny transaction in gaming, you're toast. There's no way any game that's going to be publishing things on chain wants to pay half a cent or a penny. And so there's promises of, hey, let's give you this grant for some period of time, and then the more and more people start using it, the more transactions, the less greater the cost for or the lower the cost for transaction. So that is it's a bet, but it's a bet some people aren't willing to take as a developer. And they're like, well, let's just go where we know the fees are low and the performance is good and the security is high. But I think you're right. Like we're seeing this kind of maturation where we have industry specific builds because of those reasons and because of the philosophy, Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm philosophy.
If you could only pick 2 out of 3 of these, so I'll give you on-chain gaming, very like speculative, crypto native, like DeFi, meme coin crowd, and then like the enterprise crowd that people were kind of lusting after in the 2021, 2022 days. What would you, if you had to have 2 of those kind of move on to Scale and start building on Scale, one of them says, I'll build somewhere else. How would you prioritize that?
You know what? The way we look at it is we look at, high performance applications like gaming, Web3 social apps, which we all know, I think are still failing to deliver. Web3 AI applications, there's 14 of them building on Scale already. I think there's going to be some real winners there that build great things, get users, integrate the power of blockchain and AI together. And not like, hey, like doing decentralized inference or other really sophisticated, like deep integrations, but high level app level integrations where you use Gen AI and, tokenization and smart contracts together to build really cool, user acquisition strategies and products. I think those categories are like really sought after. And then we think about DeFi as this foundational base to support them. You need to have this like minimum viable DeFi to let people swap in all these ecosystems without needing to bridge out. Okay. And then I think our DeFi approach is actually backwards. Most people are like, let's start with DeFi. Let's go really heavy into DeFi. For us, we're like, hey, let's go really heavy into gaming, Web3 AI, et cetera. And then, peel back. And now there's a huge, Sushi just went live on Scale. There's a big, big push. There's all these rewards and incentives. But the goal isn't to be a top 10 chain in DeFi. It's to be minimally viable to like have really healthy DeFi, but DeFi that's not a circular reference of people trading. It's supportive to actually like, millions of users using applications, needing to swap, needing to bridge, needing to,
Mm.
do other activities. Now, enterprise, I'm happy to opine on enterprise, but go ahead. And I think that's an
Yeah.
interesting
What's
path.
your take on enterprise? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
So I think I worked in enterprise my whole career before crypto, like up until 2017. I have a lot of like friends that are in Web3 enterprise, and one of the terms is pilotitis. We're stuck in pilotitis. Like, oh, let's try this. Let's do these pilots. And to me, one of the issues for enterprise adoption is that decentralization is one of the biggest values of a blockchain, right, and a crypto. And if you're just selling on the fact that you have like programmable money and smart contracts and mutability, trustlessness, transparency, enterprises don't care as much about that. Okay. And so I think the best enterprise play right now is B to B to C. It's the enterprises, and that's like blockchain to businesses to consumers. So blockchains that are targeting enterprises that are targeting consumers. And so you think about big major sports league, big major brands, people who service millions and millions of people and can utilize NFTs, games, smart contracts, programmable money, and like kind of these like top layer values of blockchain to really drive growth on the consumer side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. What are your thoughts on, I mean, you spent a lot of time in AI and Silicon Valley and the pre-hype days, I would say. Like, what do you think about this intersection of AI and crypto?
Yeah, and hey, go check out my Blockworks article op-ed I wrote on this. It's pretty, I think it's great. But my thesis there was, one, AI is going to have this huge support in blockchain, really just helping people build faster. So we're seeing this today, like AI, like Web3 is actually a customer of AI in so many ways. Where I know our core dev team at Skale is building so much faster because they're leveraging blockchain to write code. Okay, number one. Number two, we're going to see these lightweight integrations where it's more, hey, AI models are interacting at the app level for people that are building applications to, oh hey, like make your NFT and then do XYZ thing and utilize the AI engine and create like a fun consumer application connecting these things. Or hey, like pay in this marketplace to like train your avatar to do XYZ things for you. Now the deeper level where these things are like the marriage, which is what I wrote about in Blockworks, was the marriage of AI and Web3. This like, hey, we're having like transparency around the inference models. We're making sure that this AI engine is doing what the community wants it to do, and there's transparency around A, B, C things, and we can vote to actually make these things more left or more right or more transparent or more A, B, C. Like that, like culmination is still a ways off. But the second piece, I think we're finally getting into this. And like I said, there's 14 applications on Skale that are already blending these things together. And I think we're going to see some like big consumer wins in the AI space that leverage blockchain as like a feature.
Say more about what that means. What are some of these 14 folks doing? What does that actually entail?
So a lot of them are using like, decentral, like using, chat GPT or GPT-esque, cores, and they're creating applications on top of it. So if you go to GPT store, there's something like, there's thousands of applications. Now, imagine within this, I'll just come up with something like, let's say I have an application and I want, it's going to, I want people who are like really good creators in certain categories to help train these models for the artwork. And it's like, or it's chefs. I want chefs to help like train how do I motivate them? Oh, the more they participate, they're going to like capture tokens by being like core level, like deep level creators. On the inside, I'm going to capture users by having like a tokenization to like, airdrops effectively to like get people to utilize my product. And then I'm going to have like some voting or governance feature. So you kind of systematize a loop of usage and contribution where you've got like workers and you've got users and you've got a system, just like a blockchain, but within an application. But the center of that application is a large language model.
That's interesting. Maybe putting on your anything else on like the BD and ecosystem growth side that you want to
Yeah.
cover?
I just want to say, like, as a builder, like we have, over 250 projects that are, signed up building on Scale, over 1,000 developers. Like, there's a lot. Like, this was like, I've been calling it the Red Wedding weekend, like Game of Thrones. It's like,
Yeah.
this is not a good weekend we just had. But, from a builder perspective, like, there's more people than ever building. And I think they're building in more and more categories, and we're going to start seeing breakout use cases. And I think gaming's already breaking out. We're not seeing the success of like gaming tokens yet, but gaming traction's really growing. And I think the other pieces are following. You look at like DPIN, I think we're finding more and more use cases. Like there's one on Scale that it's called Exord. It has, tens of thousands of people all over the world that are like, downloading this Linux kernel on their computer that effectively is like a localized node, this physical infrastructure that's capturing all this like sentiment data within their realm, like the country they're in and the social media they're in. And then it uses AI to like come up with like trends and predictions based off this like hyper decentralized, data capture that's only possible with decentralized physical infrastructure. So things like that, we're actually seeing these things come to light. And I'm, from a BD and go to market, like just more and more people building than ever before. So it's exciting times, really positive,
Nice.
good stuff happening.
What about, I guess, putting on the founder's hat again? Like, I'd love to hear you talk about just macro and running a company in this. I mean, yeah, we had the jobs report, Japan. Like, we're recording this on August 6th. So the market dumped, 20%, and then has been rallying a little bit since then. But it's, just a crazy last 72 hours. What are your, like, how do you think about running a company in crypto during this time?
Yeah, I think, and you probably deal with this too. Like, one, you've got to pull your emotions out of it, right? And I think I've learned that from working in the space so long. You just kind of like, you have to be emotionally connected over like, 30 and 90-day rolling averages. Okay. Because you can't just ignore markets and not emotionally have any engagement with them. But if you are being pulled around every day by the market and you're trying to make, long-term plans and like lead people, you're not going to do a very good job. Okay. So I think that's like one perspective. And the other perspective is like, there's business strategy. It's like, I got to tell you, like a lot of projects cut costs back in 2022. And the projects you see here today are ones that cut costs. And, because the other thing is like, you need to play aggressive when markets are up. No matter what, if you're Coinbase or if you're, a fully decentralized DAO-based DeFi project, you have a budget to spend on marketing, right? And customer acquisition and user acquisition. But if you spend that into like 2022, like doom and gloom, you're just throwing that money away. You're like burning it on fire, right? You need to keep the lights on. You need to be doing things and keep spending into like tough times. They say don't cut marketing and down markets, but crypto is very specific, right? But if you're spending it, then the market's up and everyone's spending it. Well, it doesn't do you any good. You're like, it's way too saturated. So there's a timing element too that I think for anybody running a project has to be really aware of. And that gets informed by your emotional, like, sentiment and like analysis and the people you talk to. So you always have to be forming opinions so you can make moves on the chessboard. And for us, we're decentralized, so we only have a certain amount of like power and control, but we play a huge role in the project, and we play a role with our budget at Scale Labs Inc. But yeah, I got to tell you, man, it's the skill set to do well in your job or my job or lots of jobs. A lot of it is like being able to like deal with turmoil and like try to know what's around the corner.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to the Founders Podcast by David Senra?
No, I don't.
It's a good podcast. But there was an episode the other day on Rolex, and I talked about how Rolex was a big international brand, but the thing that kind of really boosted them in the US was 2008, 2009 market obviously tanks, and you get this recession, big global financial crisis, and Rolex doubled down in the United States on marketing when all the other watch brands pulled back. And they started spending more than they'd ever spent, and they really doubled down on brand awareness marketing. which I guess was a huge fight internally because everyone said, no, we need to do performance marketing. We need to pull back the marketing budget, and they pushed heavier in the bear market. So I don't know. I just thought that was an
It's
interesting
like,
anecdote.
and it's all bets, right? It's like when's the right time to do it? If you do it too early and
Mm-hmm.
too aggressively in the wrong places, you just lose it. If you do it in the right way, at the right pace, and at the right time, and that's the question, because and hey, I'll tell you, like, even if you're like booking conferences 6 months out or whatever, like everything is twice as expensive for anything you want to get. Like you're getting advertising, you're getting, no matter what it is, like you've got to be early. And so I think that's a great story with Rolex.
Yeah.
And
Jack, man, this is a great chat. Anything else that you want to cover that we should have talked about that we missed?
yeah, I think we covered a lot of topics. I think you and I always have a fun time chatting. It was fun to be able to do it publicly. Now, one thing I want to ask about is like, give us all the update. Is there going to be a golf tournament at permissionless? And are we just doing, are we just playing?
I think
What are we doing?
I think we've got it all. I mean, yeah, the idea with permissionless, and shout out Santiago for pushing me on this, was you go to all these conferences and you're just fucking wiped by the end of it. Like heavy
Yeah,
drinking, shitty food, staying inside the whole time. And yeah, we're trying to make permissionless be like a little more health centric. So we're doing it in Salt Lake. A lot of great outdoorsy stuff, good hiking. The pickleball tournament is live, so you can sign up for we're doing a big
okay.
pickleball tournament. That's
I'm
gonna be
signed
epic.
up. I'm signed up for the
Let's go.
pickleball tournament. Andrew and I are, well, at least we've applied. So,
Got you. We can get that acceptance pushed through. I know a guy who knows a guy. We got a golf scramble. Mike was like, "I'm doing the golf scramble." I was like, "Dude, I don't
I
think
got
we
to get
can."
in the golf. Okay, I need an invite for the golf scramble. I got to get in.
I told Mike, I was like, "I think we got a conference to run. Golf is like an all day activity. I'm pretty sure you can't just like take
Yeah,
off
I
one
think the
day."
golf has to happen like the day after, maybe the day before or something,
Yeah,
or like 2 days
so
before. But
it's gonna be
before would
great
not be
though.
good for you guys setting up a conference. I'll tell you that. But
It,
it'd be fun.
it's the most excited I've ever been for a conference, and it's crazy. Like, I mean, it's always been a conference for like kind of crypto native crowd, founders, execs and crypto builders, big developer audience that comes, a lot of investors, both crypto native and non. This is the first year we've ever had a lot of policymakers really coming out in droves. So from congressmen to
Awesome.
senators, which we haven't announced anything yet, but it's been cool. I'm excited
Well, I
for
say
it.
it's a great city too because it's easy to get around and it's like
It's
beautiful,
great.
and
Don't
like
sleep on
it's
Salt
the
Lake.
worst thing about conferences when you have to drive like 45 minutes to go to each leg, and you're like, so I think it'll be really good to the activities around the conference.
Don't sleep on Salt Lake. So, Jack, man, this has been great. I appreciate you. Congrats on everything you've been able to do at Scale. It's fun having you on the pod.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers, man.